Welcome to yet another webinar from Projectum. Today we're going to look at new functionality in Project for the Web. My name is Erik van Hurck and I will guide you through the agenda. Now, as this is a webinar, it's hosted online. There will be a recording after this session. That recording will be available to all of you who is joining me now, and obviously for all that who registered through the event. This presentation will also be shared, and let's have a good session together. At the end, I will take a look at questions. If you have a question, please post them in the comments or in the question feed. There's three main topics that we're going to look at today. First of all, what is Project for the Web? Then we're going to talk about new functionality that came recently to that application, and we're going to have a look into the future and see what's coming up next for this application. So Project for the Web is Microsoft's most recent offering when it comes to cloud-based work and project management. Key point here is cloud-based. What we actually intend to mean with cloud-based is that it is hosted by Microsoft itself, which gives it an easy access. Well, gives Microsoft an easy access to improve on the functionality of the application because it's so close to home for them. It's not hosted on any local servers for your organization specific. It's hosted in the cloud in the Microsoft 365 offering. There are separate licenses needed, such as the Project Plan 1, Plan 3, and Plan 5, which we'll come back to in just a few moments. But as a cloud-based solution, it has new features every month. And these are posted in a general blog, which the link is going to come up soon. And these new features, well, sometimes they're back-end features where functionality is improved without the user taking note of that. But sometimes these are features that improve the usability for the users themselves. So with a fast and simple interface, this is a go-to scheduling application for people that don't need to do heavy scheduling, because Project for the Web isn't as powerful as Microsoft Project. It is not intended at the moment to be a direct competitor, but Project for the Web is easy accessible, fast, and improving every month. So let's look at 5 key functionalities that came to the application recently, and let's dive into each one of these. We're going to look at how to import a Microsoft project file, so the Microsoft project schedule file, into Project for the Web, because there is a similarity to the functionality. However, there are some limitations which we'll dive into later. There is now also the option to add extra fields. Now, be it local fields, and we'll dive into what that means in a moment. You can now copy a schedule, and you can export that schedule to Excel, which is very useful for reporting purposes. And finally, the last functionality that I want to drill into together with you is task attachments. It's very useful to have documentation based on your tasks and share that with the team as you progress through your project lifecycle. So, first thing that we're going to jump into is a bit of a technical aspect where you will need to use PowerShell and have a couple of files downloaded to your machine in order to do this. A couple of limitations that we'll see is that it doesn't take into resources. So the resources that you had in your local schedule won't be retained in the Project for the Web schedule. However, it does retain the amount of work that is necessary for those activities. So you will be able to replace your resources with team resources once the project is uploaded. There's a detailed description on the official blog that was released in December. And there's also a deep dive demonstration link down below. So let's jump into a live demo on exporting or importing your project file. I have a file ready here. So this is a file. I just took a Office template for a project. This is called the new business template, and it has a lot in it. It has tasks, it has summary tasks, it has dependencies, as well as generic resources, such as the business advisor and the manager. That information, we're going to take as much from that and move that to our project for the web environment. Now, to do this, you need to download a couple of files, and these are three small files, and I'll try to zoom in on this a bit. The first two are DLLs, and then there is a script for PowerShell to work with. Then obviously you will need to have your Microsoft project file on your local machine. What this means is that it can't be a project online or project server file. It needs to be that file on a file share location. Another thing to keep in mind is that it doesn't have spaces in it. As soon as you have spaces in it, this script won't work and will take only the last part next to the .mpp file. So looking at this schedule, we have the project summary task, which is the top level row of your schedule, and it is the level 0 task. That will be the name for your new project for the web schedule. Looking into the code that we need to run is I have PowerShell open here, and in case you don't know what PowerShell is, it's kind of like Microsoft DOS for the old people like me who used to work with that, but on steroids. It's much more powerful, it's more modern, and it has a lot of key features that is good for coding purposes, such as importing a Microsoft project schedule to Project for the Web. Now, I already did a Dutch version of this webinar this morning, so I have the code already in the system. First you need to import the module and start fresh, where you have that code in the running memory. That doesn't look like it's doing a lot, but in any case, it's taking the data from those three files and stores that into active memory. Then the second part, and I'm trying to go and zoom in on this as well. The second part is bigger, where you will import a project into a certain instance, and you will need to record the file path where your actual schedule is retained. So with the file path, you actually need to have the full file path, including the file name itself. So you will end with .mpp. Now, how to get that instance ID? It is very simple. Navigate to your project home environment, and that location is project.microsoft.com. If you have a license, you will be able to jump to that location, and then from the Waffle app launcher at the left, you will have the option to go to Power Apps. Once you're in Power Apps, you will notice that you have an app called Project. Clicking on that project will navigate you to an instance in an environment, a solution in an environment, and that solution I have open here. Now, the first part of this URL, you want to take that and include that into the code. Now, I do agree this is kind of a technical solution, and this might be something that your administrators will do in your company, but it is very useful to know that this is now an option in Project for the Web. So let's activate this, and I do need to change just 2 letters in my code here to switch it from the Dutch file to the English file. And now I have my instance ID ready, I have my file path ready, and I have the code loaded into the active memory. So, and now I click on OK. After that, it asks me to sign in, which is actually a good thing because now I know that I have the code in the correct way. Otherwise, you would get red error text. So let me log in right now. Always fun to see if you have your password correct, right? Now you'll see a blinking light here at the start of the session, actually telling you that the code is running. And it's that fast. It takes all that information and pushes that to a new project URL. The imported project will now be accessible through this URL. Well, let's put the money where the mouth is, and let's open up a new browser or a new tab and open that project for the web schedule. So as you can see, the whole schedule is included. The new project copied project, as we've seen in the Microsoft project schedule, this name is retained as being the project name. If you don't change that project's summary task, it might say MS project and then a number. Then you know that you have the incorrect values in here. So jumping into our project, now we have our copied project in project for the web. We have a couple of information, we have some information that's retained from the previous MPP file, such as the start and the finish date. It also has information such as percentage complete, if you had that in your schedule, and something called work. Now, work is the new name that we gave to effort is the new name for work that we had in Microsoft Project. So if you had work in your previous schedule, this is now called effort in project for the web. What isn't retained is the assigned to. This is information that is linked up to Active Directory, so users, actual users, are in this system. So it doesn't take into account the resources that you had. You will need to fill that in again. But you now have a WBS, you have your tasks, you have the duration, you have the start and finish, and you have your effort. Added bonus is that you now also have a Kanban board, which you can use for your schedule if you choose to change from waterfall to Kanban, that is, or Agile. We also have the timeline, and this timeline is the modern representation of our Gantt charts, right? Where you have the option to collapse data, and now you have a nice, now you have a nice overview of your scheduled summary tasks, and you have some milestones in here as well, and options to link or press complete. Maybe this task is 50% done. Then you will see that popping up nicely in a graphical interface. So these are now options for your new schedule, and that new business copied project is now also available on our project home. So let's see it here. You'll see the new projects that I did this morning, as well as the new business copied project. We can also put in the mark as favorite, and then it will turn up on top of our schedule, or on top of our project home, actually. So this is going to be our basis for the rest of our webinar together, and we're going to jump into a couple of features that are included, well, basically since November, December, and January. Let's open up that presentation again. So this was importing a Microsoft project file. You need to use PowerShell scripts. There are some limitations. Baselines, for instance, aren't retained. Deadlines aren't retained. But there is a detailed description on the Microsoft blog as well. Adding extra fields is now an option. And between brackets is that it is local. That means that there is no centralized reporting possibility based on what is retained in the project for the web schedule. However, we do have an option to copy that project and extract that to Excel later on, so we have a local repository to report. But the extra fields aren't retained in the database, which is the Dataverse, or used to be called CDS, Common Data Service. So there are 4 different types of fields available. We have text, date, number, and yes, no field. Then let's see that in action in just a moment. We're also going to look into copying a schedule. Project for the web doesn't have templates, but you have the option to actually copy that schedule and use that copied project as a template. So it's kind of tricking the system into templating. The nice thing about this is that it doesn't have the resources. And again, resources in Project for the Web are actual users in the system. So they are actually Active Directory members. That means that if I copy a project, a person will be automatically overworked because he has double the work to do. But resources aren't retained, but work is. And that's nice because then you can start up a whole new schedule and retain that work and all that information about the WBS. Last thing that I wanted to mention here before we jump into the demo again is that we also have the option to export a schedule to Excel. This is ideal for sharing your schedules with externals or other people that don't have the Microsoft project files or the Project for the Web files. Export to Excel includes all the local custom fields that you created earlier, and we'll see that happening live in just a moment. And you might also want to make some changes before you start reporting in Excel about what you've just exported to Excel, because some information might not be as you would expect it to show up in Excel. Jumping back to our new business copied project. First of all, we would like to have some custom fields added. So navigating back to the grid, which is actually a tabular tabular representation of your schedule, we have the option to add a couple of fields. Now, there are a number of fields that are already native in Project for the Web, such as the percentage complete, which bucket it retains, and that's related to the board view, obviously. Then depends on is dependent on effort complete, effort remaining, and the outline number, which is related to the work breakdown structure. But now with the December update, I believe it was, we have the option to add new fields. Now, a couple of fields that we can add related to these kinds of field types. For instance, we could have a yes/no field and then mark certain tasks as being critical or needs escalation. If it needs escalation, and I'll spell that correctly, needs escalation would mean that if we have a report and we can filter down on everything that needs escalation, then you'll have a neat little overview of every task that needs a management to look into, for instance. So we can say that defining new entity requirements actually is something that we need to escalate on, or we could say, okay, assess market size and stability is also something that we would lead escalation. This is useful for our future reference for this project. Now, as mentioned, Project for the Web currently doesn't have the option to include deadlines like Microsoft Project used to. There won't be any alarm bells going off when you add a deadline into this tool. However, we do have the option to add a date field and create our own deadline. And that deadline field can now be used next to the finish date. And we can say, okay, well, our deadline is actually going to be the 1st of April. So we would still be good to go. And if I increase the value here, and I say this might be 1 week, then what you see happening here is that the finish date does grow because there is a longer duration, but that deadline field is actually set in stone, just like we used to have in Microsoft Project. This is easily handed over to Excel, which will come up later, and then you can have conditional formatting where you would reference the deadline field and the finish date field and maybe do some trickery there in Excel. So this was adding extra or additional fields. These are local fields. They aren't stored anywhere centrally, so you won't be able to grab other people's custom fields anytime soon. However, we do have the option to have this new business copied project and take that whole schedule and copy that to a new file. So let's click on copy project, and everything that we had is now stored into a new file. If I click on this and I would change the name of this file and, for instance, say that this is a template, I can now use this template file for future reference. Obviously, start dates and end dates would change for every future project that's based on this template, and the deadline won't make any sense anymore. But this is an interesting starting point for you to have with this schedule. So let's see that new business schedule template from our project home. As you can see, we have that new business copied project here, that one that we created based on a Microsoft project. And we now have that copied project, which is actually a template. Now, if you have multiple templates and you don't want to lose track of those, it might be interesting to have them marked as a favorite. And you can have a number of fields or a number of files here on top as being your templates. So make sure to have a couple of these. And if you want to create a new project based on that template, just simply open up that project template, go all the way top right, click copy project. Now we have our new schedule. A new schedule. This now has a new name. You can even change the owner for that. You can change the start date. It's just a ready to go schedule that you can pick up and start working with. Now, if this is a schedule that you want to share with external people, you might want to look into the export to Excel option. It's also into the ellipsis on the top right called export to Excel, and this will grab the information from that schedule and it will present that into a nice Excel file. So let's open up Microsoft Excel, and before editing, make sure to click on that enable editing, because otherwise you won't be able to. On the top left, there's some basic schedule information about the whole project. It has the start and date, it has the duration, it has the percentage of complete, and it has the date on when this project schedule was exported to Excel, giving you an easy look and feel and retain information from that moment in time. As you can see, our deadline file, our deadline column is also included, as well as our needs escalation. And we can easily put a filter on this, auto filter, and we can have a filter saying, well, show me everything that is yes. And now we have our two filtered out tasks that actually need escalation, and this you can send over to your management or share with your client. As mentioned, there is more retained into the Excel, such as the dependencies, the percentage complete, the bucket, every custom or every local field and custom field and out of the box field is included here. It also has a column for the milestones, and it has something about notes. Now you can add notes to Project for the Web. Something that I would change as soon as you have this Excel file, and I see that I have to filter on the wrong row. Never mind. Something that I would change if I was you in regards to reporting purposes for this schedule is that what you see here in the duration, these all have the space days next to it. Well, that wouldn't make much sense to have a report based on this that is numerical. So what you want to do is you want to select these files, or you want to select this column and click on Control H. And now you have the option to find every day and replace that with nothing. And we found 100 cells that have that. And now we want to also replace the S in here because we had days, plural, and we want to replace that. And we want to make sure that we also cancel out that week. So 1 week, we're also going to replace that. So now we have the duration, and we want to make sure that this duration actually is in days. And then you would need to have this changed to 5 days, obviously. And now you can report based on the duration in maybe a graphical interface. Same goes to the hours, the effort. Effort is a bit more easy because we have just hours here, where I would replace space and hours. And then I would have all the hours replaced. And then I would say, okay, well, effort is hours. And now I have a useful tool, a useful Excel file that I can have further reporting on and sharing this to my customer or to my client or management. So that's it for exporting to Excel. Let me take a sip of water. And let's jump into task attachments, because that is another one of the functionalities that was recently added to Project for the Web. Task attachments come in 3 types. We have the option to link to an URL anywhere on the internet, basically, right? We have the option to add files from a computer or files from a Teams file storage. Now for the bottom half, the bottom 2 items, you will need to hook up that project to a Microsoft 365 group. This is required because when it's hooked up to a Microsoft 365 group, it actually includes a Microsoft Teams environment as well as a SharePoint repository for the files that you need to store. So these files aren't stored within the Dataverse, which is the backend of Project for the Web. It's actually stored in the SharePoint environment created based on that project. So let's have a look what this means for our Project for the Web schedule. So this schedule currently resides only with me. I am the owner and I'm the only user, so there's no group associated with this project. As you can see here, there's no group. We can either create a new group or add people, add this project schedule to a group that already exists. But before we do, I want to make clear what it means that we only have the option to include URLs in here. So clicking on that little eye here opens up the additional information for that task. I can assign this to, for instance, myself. And I can add a note. As soon as I've done that, adding the note, a little icon pops up here in the quick look view, or the quick look table column. Sorry about that. So the quick look column actually indicates if there is a task node or if there are attachments. So adding attachments now, because I don't have a link to a Microsoft 365 group, means that I can only add a URL. So a link to a URL such as, for instance, projectum.com. If I click on add here now, you will see that the text that I gave it, my employer, as well as the URL, if it's that small or if it grows, it will cut off somewhere. If I click on this now, it opens up in a new tab. Very nice, very neat. But what if we want to add documents? Documents that are useful for finishing up to define the new entities requirements, which is this task. For this, we would need to create a new group. So how would we do that? We could go in and assign an additional resource to this task. And that's basically the easiest way and the fastest way to do this. So let's add Gerwin, who is my manager. And as soon as I clicked on Gerwin, first connect this project to a group. And this is a Microsoft 365 group, as it's mentioned here. And we can choose either create a new group or add it to a group that already exists. So I'm going to add it to a new group. But if you would add it to an already existing group, Project for the Web will automatically associate all the members of that group to this project, giving them easy access to visualize that project. So that's something to keep in mind. Add a new schedule, create and assign. So now Gerwin, as well as myself, we are assigned to this project task. And if I click on the I here now, I will have additional options. So I can either choose to look into the Teams folder that we already have, but that Microsoft Teams folder is currently empty. Now, Microsoft Teams is an ideal communication platform. We're communicating through Teams now, for instance. If we add documentation to that Teams folder, and at some point in time we want to reference one of those documents to our schedule, then this is the way to go. So from team folders, if we open that up now, it shows us that this folder is empty, which is true, obviously. However, if we open up add attachments again and we click on from computer, we open that up and let me find a nice Excel file. Click on open. It will see that this is an Excel file and you will have the option to open up that Excel. It also includes 2 attachments to the quick look view. Now, because this is a Microsoft application that I've added here, and because it is stored now in my Teams folder, everyone that has access to that Microsoft Teams environment also has access to this Excel file. Clicking on it will open up a new browser window, a browser tab. And in here, you can see that it is stored in a site starting with a new schedule. So you know that you have a SharePoint location. This is now not the old file that you had on the folder or on your computer. This is now the new file that is stored in a SharePoint library. And in here, I can make changes if I wanted to, and I could share that with the team. So if I close this up now, and if I open up from team files now, I will see that new file that is now already stored in this task. And as you can see, there's already a red marker here telling you that this file is already attached to this task, which is awesome. So these Let me jump back to the schedule, or let me jump back to the presentation. These are the 5 new features that I wanted to share with you today. So we had importing a Microsoft project file using PowerShell, and it might be a bit too technical for everyone, but this is very useful for geeks like me. Extra fields, these are local. We have the option to copy a schedule and create a template through that way. We also have the option to export to Excel and further analyze our project there. And we have the option to add attachments. And if we want to attach files, we would do that through a Microsoft Teams or a Microsoft 365 group. Now, this is not all. Obviously, there is a Microsoft, sorry, let me rephrase. Project for the Web is a cloud-based solution, and it's updated every month. So what can we expect for the next iterations? Well, currently rolling out in a couple of countries in the world, Canada, France, Germany, and the Emirates, I believe it was, and I believe one other country. Project for the Web currently resides in the default environment of Dynamics, which basically means that it is not production ready for large enterprise interfaces, because the default environment gives users too much permissions. Everyone will be able to create new apps in the default. Everyone will be able to delete everything in the default. So Project for the Web is going to be deployable to other environments within the system. Now again, this, just like importing from a MPP file, is very technical and might not be for everyone, but consultants like me, we're very excited that this feature is coming out. Then mail notifications is also going to be an option, and timeline to PDF. Well, what is the timeline? Let's look at that again. The timeline is this graphical representation of your schedule, which we used to call a Microsoft Gantt chart, or without Microsoft even. A Gantt chart. There is more, and here's that link again to the Microsoft project blog. This is the official blog, and every month they will post a new blog article notifying us that new features are available. Now, for Project for the Web, there is an option to enrich functionality. Projectum and other partners create third-party extensions for Project for the Web. Below is an assortment of our own apps, such as Power PPM, which is a, well, I wouldn't say a competitor, but an alternative to Project Online and Project Server. Then we have Team Planner, which is a capacity management system. And we have Time for Teams, which is a time sheeting application. Presented and Power Hub are 2 tools to do further analysis on reporting side. So feel free to take a moment and contact us for a live demo if you would like to know more about this. Closing off for this presentation today, just a brief picture of me, who you've been spending the last, well, 40 minutes with. My name is Erik van Hurck, and I work for the company called Projectum. Leaving you with just the slide with all the new features, and giving you a brief moment to maybe give a comment or ask a question, and I'll open up the Teams environment again, or the Teams presentation again, and let's see if there's questions asked today. I believe there are 4 questions. Very nice. All right. We do have time for some of them, I believe, Jonathan. Will you also focus on licensing part of the webinar? Can a web timeline planning be shared in Microsoft Teams to users without a project plan one subscription? Well, Corny, very good question. And one of the improvements that isn't visualized in this webinar is that now we have a read-only option for everyone in the schedule, even if they're not, if they don't have a Plan 1, 3, or 5 license. That means that Microsoft has 4 licenses that are associated with Microsoft with Project for the Web. The base license is Office 365. If you have that license, you will be able to view all schedules that you're assigned to. If you, however, have a license to a P1, you will also be able to create or edit a schedule in Project for the Web. And then top of the line, top of the shelf, we have a P3 and a P5 license. And if you have those, you will be able to use Project for the Web together with model-driven apps, such as the the Power PPM solution by Projectum. Let's hear, Corny, if this answers your question, and I'll continue on to the next questions that we have. Bear Norman asks, has the limitation on the number of tasks within a single project in Project for the Web changed, or is it still 500? Very correct. If I remember correctly, Per says. Per, this is still a limitation. In Project for the Web, you will not be able to add more than 500 tasks yet. If this is a limitation for you working with Microsoft on a Project for the Web, it might be an idea to put this in the user notes, UserVoice. And I'll put a link in the recording once it's live on YouTube. That UserVoice is where the team of project works together with everyone basically to improve functionality, and it might be a future improvement. So then we have Carl Magnus. Let's see what the question is. The import functionality is very nice. Yes, I love that as well. Will there be a more public import function, basically where you drag and drop Excel similar to, well, that would be lovely. Carl Magnus is asking if you have a more user-friendly way of importing in a Microsoft project file into Project for the Web. Currently, because we're using PowerShell, it's a bit complex. I haven't heard about more public versions of importing, and if that's something that Microsoft is considering. So that will be up to another webinar in the future, I believe. So Rob has another question. Let me just read it. Does the assigning of tasks appear in to-do? Do you have all the tasks, Project Planner, To-do, Outlook in one place? Rob, an excellent question. Rob basically is asking if Project for the Web tasks and assignments are also stored together with other locations such as Planner, To-do, and Outlook. This has been a vision of Microsoft that I believe is already partly completed with Planner and To-do combined in Microsoft Teams. Currently, the assigned to is from Project for the Web isn't included into this functionality. I do hope, together with you, I believe, that this will be done in a future iteration of the tool, where we would be able to have tasks from Project for the Web, Planner, To-do, Outlook, all in one location, so that it doesn't matter where you work. As long as you work in one of the Microsoft tools, you will have a full schedule of all your activities that you are going to do. Then let's see, there is another question, and We still have time, right, Jonathan?
Yeah, we can do a few more. Yeah.
Sure. Marcelo asks, "Hi Eric, thanks for the presentation. I will be interested in seeing a demo on Power PPM as well as ruling it out with yourselves here at." All right. Well, I'm not going to continue with the company name here. Marcelo, very welcome. Very nice that you liked the demo. We'll take it offline and make sure that you will get a demonstration of Power PPM. Then an anonymous, very difficult word for a Dutch speaker, an anonymous user asks, "We need Gantt charts and other entities. How can we create Gantt charts on our other data?" So main question here is, how do we get Gantt charts on our other data entities? I would believe that you would need to upgrade this project for the web solution to a model-driven counterpart, where the entities will live together with the project for the web environment. And this is possible, but needs some more knowledge before we can dive into this deeper. So please feel free to contact me offline, and I would love to further digress on that. Let's see. And another person asks if timeline is supported. Yes, that is supported. That is correct. How is Milestones app in Teams related to Project for the Web? I am not familiar with the Milestones app in Microsoft Teams. I will look into that and I will give the answer on the YouTube channel. As a project user, as a Microsoft project user, this is new to me. Where do you see this application being used? Hope it is not a silly question. Well, there are no silly questions, obviously. As a user of Microsoft Project, you might be familiar with the application and that it has a wide variety of use cases. It can be used to build nuclear power plants, as well as submarines, as well as basically everything. Project for the Web, as I see it personally, is an application that is lightweight, used for a quick way to visualize your schedule or project lifecycle if it is not too complex. So if you need advanced resource scheduling, or if you need to have a clear view on critical path, or if you need to monitor cost values within Project for the Web, you will be limited. So as a Microsoft project user, if you are extensively using that application, Project for the Web will not be a replacement for you. However, if you just use it to visualize a Gantt chart and visualize the work breakdown structure with some of work effort, Project for the Web is an ideal solution. One of the key features of Project for the Web, I think, is that it is easily shareable with everyone in your organization. As Microsoft Project is an expensive application because you need to have a rather expensive license to use it. With the read-only option in Office 365 licenses, you're out cheaper, basically, to share that information with others. So let's see if there is some other questions. Thank you about the compliment. I'm not trying to pronounce the name. I'm very sorry, but can we expect any API for Project for the Web to deal it with coding and integrating with external systems? Very technical question, and I do believe that we will see APIs in the future for Project for the Web. It will make sense for Microsoft to continue its line of thought where other applications and other companies have the option to interact with tools from Microsoft. We've seen it happening with Microsoft Teams. We've seen it with Power BI. It would make sense that Microsoft pulls that line and gets that to Project for the Web in the future. Now, currently, I believe that is not going to happen this quarter, but maybe next quarter. So as I briefly mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, is because Project for the Web is increasing each month, I would assume that in the future we will do a follow-up for this webinar. Once I have 5 more items to share with you, I would love to see you all back again and have another round at this. Jonathan, I think that those are, oh, I see 2 new ones. All right. I got a link to that Milestones app. I will look into that. And furthermore, thank you very much for attending, everyone, and hope to see you next time.